The Battle of Bunker Hill, June 17th, 1775, by Liam Craig. The Bunker Hill Monument, standing in Charlestown, is a great symbol of the colonists' fight to gain independence and develop its own nation. The monument, standing over 220 feet, was erected in 1843 to commemorate the battle. The altercation was the first major battle in the Revolutionary War. The battle marked that inexperienced troops of the colonial militias could successfully stand up against their British superior enemies and have a chance to fight for their morals and for their beliefs. In order to understand the way in which the engagement influenced the development of the nation, one must understand the background of the battle in coherence with the events leading up to and after this historic conflict. Two months before the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Battle of Lexington and Concord occurred, effectively starting the Revolutionary War with a shot heard round the world. After being sent to seize military weapon depots, about 1,500 British regulars left the safety of Boston in search of these caches. However, word reached the patriot militias of the British movements to claim the weapons, and shortly after, the arms were moved to other locations. The patriot colonial militias soon came face to face with the well-trained soldiers of King George's army. In Lexington, early on the morning of April 19, 1775, British soldiers under Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith, an attachment of Thomas Gage's army, ordered the colonial soldiers to lay down their arms. A shot was fired, and this started the War of American Independence. Quickly, the British ranks fell into disarray as their assault was disorganized, and soon they fell into retreat back towards Boston in a tactical withdrawal. The colonial troops harassed the retreating Loyalists in their retreat until they reached the safety of Boston and Charlestown. Due to the military skill of Lord North, the British troops were able to avoid surrendering to their adversaries. Once reaching the city of Boston, the siege of the city began, in which the port city was surrounded by land, effectively trapping the regulars inside, with no possibility of resupply by land. British occupying general of Boston, Thomas Gage, began planning a breakout from the city to end the siege. His plan included concentrating his defenses nearby Dorchester's Heights and claiming the Boston Neck, connecting the city of Boston to the rest of Massachusetts. The assault aimed to end the 2-month siege of Boston in a campaign on June 18, 1775. Colonist forces in the area received word of the impending British assault and moved to fortify their position in the area. Almost overnight, they constructed a redout atop Breed's Hill under the command of William Prescott. Soon the next morning, the position came under artillery fire from British troops in Boston Harbor, as well as artillery stationed atop Cobb's Hill. Prescott ordered reinforcements, and among the reinforcements was a wealthy Joseph Warren, who declined a place of command as he wanted to fight as a regular soldier, even though his application to become a general was in the process of being reviewed. Warren was the leader of the Sons of Liberty in Boston at the time of the engagement. General Gage's forces, under the command of General Howe, crossed the harbor into Charlestown, and upon noting the significant amount of forces stationed atop Breed's Hill, Howe ordered for more reinforcements from Gage. Regardless, by afternoon, British forces were ready to launch a 3-pronged assault to claim Breed's Hill. British forces attacked, and in a first wave, the regulars concentrated their assault on the left flank of the hill. The Crown met fierce resistance and was forced to retreat to their own dismay. In a second strike, the British marched on the beach side of the redout, but the British army ended up retreating after failing to break through the rebel line. In the final assault, Howe's force concentrated on the redout, and soon the colonial defenders were overrun after running out of ammunition and being forced to revert to close quarters combat. The British were able to use their bayonets to cut down the defenders clinging to the hill, as the colonial men did not have bayonets attached to their firearms to stall the British assault. The colonial troops and the redout fell back into the woods, and during the retreat, Son of Liberty leader Joseph Warren was killed. However, most of the soldiers were able to escape due to the organized tactical retreat, with John Stark on the left flank, preventing the rebel forces from being cut off. Though the British had won the battle, it had come at a very heavy cost, with around 1,000 casualties as opposed to 400 casualties the colonial rebels suffered. Among the Loyalist casualties were many officers. The altercation marked the first major battle of the Revolutionary War, and the courageous efforts of the colonial troops at Bunker Hill are commemorated by the monument standing atop Breed's Hill today. Here is a brief summary of the battle.
On June 16, 1775, 1,200 American militia marched from Cambridge to come to Charlestown to build a fortification on Bunker's Hill. Their orders were to build a formidable place to drive the British out of Boston. The British immediately decided that they needed to be moved off that hill. 2,000 British soldiers came over from Boston, marched up the slope of this hill. As they were marching up, the American commander, Colonel Prescott, told his men, "Don't fire. Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." As they drew near, Colonel Prescott commanded, "Volley, fire!" The British soldiers went down in windrows, back, reeling down the hill. They came up a second time. Again, Prescott told his men, "Hold your fire, hold your fire." They came close, the Americans fired again, and for a second time the British retreated down the hill. They came up a third time. By this time, the Americans had run short of ammunition. The British came over the redoubt and drove the Americans off the hill. Nearly 450 Americans fell that day. More than twice that number of British soldiers died. The British crowed about their victory at Bunker's Hill, causing an American general, Nathaniel Greene, to comment, "Fine," he said, "we'll sell them hills at that price anytime."
The battle represented that British forces were not invincible and could in fact be defeated by an army, even an ill-equipped, inexperienced force such as that of the colonial troops. The battle is important to the understanding of American history, as it demonstrates the way in which this very nation was formed. The site standing atop Breed's Hill is arguably one of the most important reminders of the struggle for independence and serves as a symbol of patriotism and liberty for those to seek value in today.